everyone, and welcome to the Conversations program today with Gary Gilbertson, a Veterans Day salute. The library staff has asked Mr. Gilbertson to join us today in recognition of the service that he's given to our country and to reflect with him about his memories of his time with the Army in Germany from 1966 until 1969. So again, welcome, Gary. Thank you for being here with us today, and we'll let you take it from here.
Okay, thank you very much, Lacey and Trina, for inviting me to be part of this program. I gave a speech last year at the Veterans Day celebration and program at the Viroqua High School. And as much as I've been in radio, I have never really given a talk like that. And I had second thoughts about doing it in one respect, because I know the people that had gone before me had actually been in combat situations and in areas where there was military crossfire and all that stuff. I worked in radio when I got out of college after about a one-year stint at Minneapolis. And I was lucky enough to get a job here in Viroqua at WISV in 1965. And I graduated quite early. I don't know what really happened, but my mother apparently wanted me to graduate with 4 other cousins. So she shoved me into that group of kids. So we had 5 cousins graduate Westby High School in 1964. So I graduated at 17. So I was 18 when I was quite 18 when I started working at the radio station here. But once I turned 18, of course, the magic trick then in 1965, and before that was the draft. And for the younger people, that's something that they only hear of now, but you had to register, and if your number came up, they would send you in for what they call induction. So my time was getting shorter, as I knew it would be after I got my notice from the draft board. It came like perfect on my birthday. Congratulations, you're 18. Uncle Sam wants you.
Wow.
So I ended up with thinking about it. Do I want to get drafted or do I want to enlist? And my dad had been a World War II veteran, and he said, just let him draft you. I said, and my mother said, well, you got flat feet, you probably never get in. That term flat feet is, I don't know what that really means, but apparently you're not a marcher, military personnel thing. So I had a program that I talked to military people almost every month or so. The Marines were there, the Navy, the Air Force, the Army, they all came into Viroqua for recruiting purposes, and they came and did a program. And I hit it off with the Army guys, and I said, you know, I probably would join the Army if I could get into radio. And the guy said, well, we have a program. I said, what? Army is our radio? I knew nothing of that. And he said, yeah, we can, you know, if you sign up, we'll get you in. If you get drafted, you probably won't get a chance to be part of our radio thing. I said, okay. And I thought, I've just gone through a whole year of radio broadcasting. Why do I need to do military stuff? But the old saying is, there's your way of doing things, and then there's the Army way of doing things. But realistically, you know, looking back at it, it wasn't anything too much different. Anyway, I ended up going to Fort Leonard for basic training in January. And the highlight was watching the boys from Missouri and Arkansas and Alabama freeze to death at 45-degree weather in January and February. And Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa people saying, this is not winter. So I spent 9 weeks there. Then I had a little break, and then I was supposed to get orders for a broadcast school in Fort Ben Harrison, Indiana. Never came. Got reassigned to Fort Leonard Wood, and I worked in the public information office there for, I guess, from summer until the fall, and I knew nothing really about writing articles for a newspaper because I was all radio. But I somehow managed to muddle through that, and then I knew a guy from the personnel office that controlled some of the things going overseas, and I said, if you ever see something in radio in Germany, let me know. I've forgotten about it, but about a month or two after I was standing on the line to eat supper in the mess hall, the guy says, Gilbertson, he said, I got a trip to Germany if you want. And I said, really? But you have to leave soon. I said, I'm not on anybody's schedule. So I got 30 days here before I left for Germany, but then I spent 3 Thanksgivings and 3 Christmases overseas. and I was in radio over there. They called it Armed Forces Radio then. Now they call it American Forces.
Okay.
And we were like a feeder to the main headquarters in Germany at AFN Frankfurt. When I got to Frankfurt after flying from here, United States, my dad always told me, be prepared for anything. Well, I'm glad he told me that. And when I was home on break in that October window till I left in late October, early November, I made 26 copies of my orders to be assigned to AFN Europe. So I sat in this what they call a holding station. I sat there 2 days, so normally like 2 hours and you're out of there. And they said, we're going to call these guys. Well, they finally called Frankfurt and they said, wait, no, we don't know this guy. So I walk into the guy that they call Sergeant Major, which is in charge of all the announcers. And he said, we have no orders for you. I said, one moment. I opened up my little bag and I said, how many do you want? 10, 15, 20? He says, that's why we don't have any copies. You got them all. I said,
Oh.
that's a legitimate,
Really?
you know? And then they said, well, we don't have any room for you in Frankfurt. I said, well, I'm not going back to the States. So they said, well, we had an opening coming up soon in a town called Kaiserslautern, Germany. At that time, it was West Germany, I think, only. And he said, we'll put you on the train and then they'll pick you up. Okay. Now here's a 18-year-old Coon Valley Norwegian boy getting on a train in Frankfurt, Germany, heading somewhere in Germany at night. Had no idea where I was going to go. I had no idea what the towns were. I was a little bit nervous, but then I got there and fit in like I've been there all my life. And I spent 2.5 years there doing radio stuff, which I really enjoyed.
Oh.
Came back here in '69 and got out of the service in January and started working at WISV, then now WVRQ. And I've been there, well, if you count time in service, it's 55 years.
Okay.
It's
Wow.
52 years. And I actually got back, and the owner at that time was Dave Robinson's dad, Parks. And he told me that I should start a sports department. Okay. Out of nowhere. And of course, I just knew for Oakland Westmead High School, but I didn't know anybody else around here. Even by that time, Kickapoo had merged, North Crawford had merged, a lot of ones had merged, and I had no idea what I was getting into. Pete and I eventually met in March of '69. Backtracking to '65, I'd been at the post office and some older lady, probably in her 40s or 50s, came out with a whole bunch of mail. And I'd just been dropped off the mail at the post office for the radio station and said, can I give you a lift anywhere? Those days, you trusted everybody, didn't worry about that stuff. She said, sure. And I got in the car and I said, well, first of all, you got to tell me who you are. She looks at me, she says, well, you're Peter Walby. I said, no.
That's
I'm
funny.
not Peter Walby. She says, oh, I got to get out of the car. I said, no, I told her who I was and she trusted me. So I took her home. It took me until '69 to figure out who she was. It was one of Pete's elementary teachers. Yeah, really strange. And I didn't even know who he was until I met him at the radio station in 1969 when he was doing nights down there. And then he and I eventually did ball games together, and we like, two old shoes. Now we're side by side all the time doing
Right.
stuff and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But back when I was in Germany, the main thing we did was to just try to keep the morale of the troops up. We were doing a different type of, I don't know, call it mental health or psychological things. The things in the war zone in Vietnam in that era, they were, pumping stuff into the GIs over there like crazy. That give up and don't. America's not going to win this thing and all this stuff. And in Germany, they didn't get all that stuff, but there's still people outside of the military thing that were not really pro-war. So there were a lot of people telling the American Army people, different things. So our job was just to give a positive influence.
Oh, is that right? So that's how you broadcasted that message during your radio.
Well, just by doing music from America, and at that time it was different than it is now, because at that time we had to have everything was so tight with the military stuff that they only had selected songs they could play. Remember, because
that
you're way
right?
too young, Lacey, and Trina is too. Back in that era, there were a lot of anti-war songs out type things, and the military, of course, would never put that on the military radio station. Now, there are a lot of songs that didn't really come out and say something about the war, but there were some things like the Beatles did that they didn't want on the American station. The irony of all this, there was a satellite radio station out in the Atlantic, somewhere over there by Luxembourg. They called it Radio Luxembourg, and they played all American pop tunes,
Okay.
nothing large. So you could still get that if you wanted to.
Mhm.
But for the most part, our mission was just to preserve the military heritage of the efforts, and everything we got had to come out of Los Angeles. It was called American Forces Radio and Television.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they all came on a record. So, if we had a song by Lacey Sheldon, we could play it, but then, we couldn't play something from Trina Erickson, for example, because it just wasn't in the mixture. They sent us the songs. Those artists those days were like Peggy Lee and all the old people that have long gone now, but they're all popular songs then,
Yes.
We had a record that came out, had 5 or 6 selections on it, and they had a certain thing we could do. Where I worked, we had from about 8 o'clock till about, 7 o'clock in the morning till about 9, and then we had from 10 to 11 our local time, and we basically read announcements and community things going on.
Okay.
So it was the end of the veteran, as far as I'm concerned, my part was a little bit different than the guys were in the actual zones. Now, see, Pete Walby, he was in Korea, and he was a little more near the action where I wasn't. Now, Dave Robinson, our station owner, he was right in the middle of the thing. He was a second lieutenant in the jungle and everything,
Wow.
So there's different walks of life and so many different occupations that classify what a veteran is. And, looking back at it, they offered me a extended stint, but as it turns out, it wasn't. I didn't want to stay any more than 3 years. So I want to get back home again.
Yeah.
And I was going to get a promotion and everything, but I thought this probably is, I've done my 3 years and I had still 3 years of reserve time that they never really used against me and never called me up because we weren't needed then because we had active Army so busy. But the veteran part of it is just amazing now. I don't know if you can see this or not. Got up here, this American Legion thing. Yeah. I joined that in 1969 at Coon Valley. And my background with that, I joined it because my dad had been one of the big members for years and wanted me to join. And then in the 1970, because I was a young guy, I didn't know any better, I said I'd be the county adjutant, which is basically a secretary for the commander. I did it for 2 years. Then Walter Schlicht from Baroqua here saw me at a meeting. He said, I think when you work in the high schools, you'd be a natural fit for the Youth Government Day. I said, okay. He said, I tried for 2 years, 1972 now. And guess what? I'm still doing it. That's before kids, before grandkids.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've gone, through, I don't know how many judges. We had Larry Seeger, Olga Bennett, Walter Block. Michael Rosberg was the longest running judge. And now I have Darcy Root. We are not able to this year because of the COVID situation, but we went from maybe having 40 or 50 kids. We opened up the window to allow 20 kids per high school, so we got 150.
Wow. That's great.
And the fun part of the whole thing is we have a lunch at they used to have at the Legion, and they used to serve us barbecue. And the auxiliary members got quite old and they just couldn't quite do it anymore, so we opt to do pizza. And we went from 20 over at the Eagles one year because the Legion was being remodeled to now 66 pizzas. And they finished it in 15 or 20 minutes.
Yes, gone.
Yeah. You never ate pizza that fast, Lacey. Never, did
No.
you?
No.
But anyway, I've been involved with the youth government. Basically what it is that they have a chance to sit in the courtroom and see what they call an intake day and see the people come into Vernon County, and some of them are just things that involve a woman and her boyfriend, or might be a situation where there's been some commotion going on, racing through town, this type thing. Some of them are real serious, others are not, and they just get a chance to see what the judge has to say and the DA and all that. Quite educational. We sit there about 2.5 hours, and then that's over with. We used to have almost a whole day with it when they actually were a county clerk and they were like county treasurer, but everybody wanted to be sheriff, coroner, district attorney, or judge. Nobody else wanted to be abstractor, county treasurer. Those are exciting things. So, and that was harder on the county official because the lack of attention by the kids was really dropping off. So we went to this courthouse thing. So now after all these years, go back to 1980 or so, with my boys, Andrew was about 5 and Nick was about 2. One Sunday, I saw the Vertical Legion baseball team was playing ball in the park ball. I told Judy, I'll get them out of the house. We'll go down and watch baseball. You want to go along? I'm not going down to watch old men run around the bases. And come back, I said, you have a surprise. These are actually high school kids. And all 3 of us, the boys and I, really got hooked on this thing. And then when they got old enough, they started helping Pete Swanson with the state tournament, the national stuff we have here and all that stuff. And we've been doing a lot of stuff with that over the years. And he still always asks if the boys can come back and help. It's not as easy now because they both have families, but
Sure.
and the girls did too. And they worked in the concession stand, this type thing. But the neat thing about it was it just really grown. Well, then reporting Legion scores here I've been doing for years. We're about the only station around here that does Legion baseball scores. So Roger Matheson, who lives outside of Coon Valley, Chaseburg, Westby area, he's the state commissioner, I should say. And he approached me one day and said, I think you'd be a natural fit. Here's that word again, natural fit for this job. I said, what is it? Well, we need somebody to take care of reporting scores. I said, okay. So every mid-July through early August, I get all the scores either text to me, email to me, call to me of all the teams playing in the state. And the first week it isn't bad because it's the junior legion, which are 16 and 17-year-olds. So there's only 14 regionals. And then all the scores that come in of all the teams playing. And then the second week, then the juniors have their state tournament and the other ones kick in. So there's about 23 sites reporting scores.
Okay.
I'm getting better at it now because I'm not up at 3 o'clock in the morning. For the first year or two, I was down in Iowa doing softball. When I got this job, I was doing Iowa State softball for Key High. It'd be nothing for me to get a ding on my computer going at a score. I got to get up. I was up sometimes middle of the night doing it just to get on, And I worked real hard on it. Now it's a lot easier because I have the iPhone, I get the text message and so on. So I've been deeply involved with the Legion baseball. So besides County Youth Government Day for all these years, I've now been the public relation director, they call it, but it's just a fancy title for a state scorekeeper.
Okay.
American Legion baseball, and that's like I say, 3-4 weeks of my time. Sometimes it does get to be trying, but with the phone, it's so much handier. But I've been doing that for a long time, but it's gotten in my blood. And I know when the kids got out of playing Legion ball, Judy thought maybe possibly I would give up the situation. I'm giving some of the duties away now, but I still help with the local thing as much as I can.
That's great, Gary. That definitely reminds me about how many ways the Legion veterans reach out to the community.
Yeah.
In service projects. So that's
it really, it's really amazing. There's so many things you can do, even, and with me, it's my background and the contacts I know is just easier. But I'm one guy that
and a love of
going.
baseball.
What's that? Oh yeah, well yeah.
A love of baseball.
And the problem we get into, Coon Valley had a couple of years ago, and there was a coach for the scout of the Los Angeles Dodgers, lives in Winona, Minnesota, Jerry Raditz. He said, you really weren't really up till 3 o'clock this morning putting scores on. I said, I really was, because I couldn't do it when I was doing play-by-play in Coon Valley. The games were on, I could not concentrate on trying to put all the scores in. So I had to go back home, and I sat then and just did for 2 or 3 hours, get it done.
That's right.
I'm one that wants to get stuff dedicated, and I'm going to do it. I'm not much on going to being on other boards and so on, because the meeting situation, never been a great fan of meeting once a month or whatever. I belong to Coon Valley Legion, but I rarely go to a meeting. Vernon County Legion has a meeting. I rarely go to that, but somehow they find my name and it comes to renewal every 2 years.
Uh-huh.
You know, I really should find out if the ballots are really tainted or not, because I think they all just rush me and
Sure. Well, they have your email and phone number to get you all the score updates as well. So
yeah.
that's an interesting part to it, Gary. I didn't know that you served the state Legion baseball in that way too. So that's
Yeah, it's a great organization. We have about 210, 15 teams, and now a couple of years ago, the public school, the WIAA, it dropped summer baseball. So we're now trying to get those schools into the fold too.
Okay.
Now this summer, Legion nationwide canceled,
Mhm.
but the Renegades out in the Dakotas said, COVID or not, we're playing. I don't know how it turned out, but
Okay.
they did play some games over there, but they weren't really under the Legion umbrella. I think they took it under their own hat.
Yeah. By that, Gary, did you mean that the Legion was going to be hosting a state tournament here at the local Viroqua Park Bowl this summer, but it was canceled? Is that right?
Right, yeah, they had canceled it, and the word was in our meeting via Zoom in June that the team that had going to host it 2021 would get the bid or this year, I should say, for 2021. We get the meeting in October, everything changed, and I think there's only one community that got the bid for 2021. The rest of them now we're shoved into 2022, but with the Park Bowl being renovated, it'll give us a chance to work out some of the wrinkles, and all that stuff. When I got here in 1969, growing up in Coon Valley, baseball was my life. I loved to watch baseball games. And to this day, I can't ride a bike because I just told Judy that that's for girls, because nobody in Coon Valley, when I was a young person, Lacey, all the girls drove bikes, but the boys hardly ever did because they were busy playing baseball.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
And my wife said, that's sort of stupid. I said, well, I know, but it's Coon Valley. We just played baseball. That's all we did, But then 69, I came here and I looked at the baseball field and I said, you guys play ball here? It's just a rough field. I wish we could find pictures of that, because that was just, it was just really rough. And now it's like a show place. I mean, beautiful down there. And people come here from far away. And that's the nice thing that with this so-called national, we brought in teams in other states to just see what we have here. And everybody walks away just in awe because the way it's laid out.
Well, and Gary, I can let you know that this summer, there will be a conversations program by Veronica Kleiber on the baseball boys of summer. So Veronica Kleiber, Miss Kleiber, she also is a volunteer for the Vernon County Historical Society. So I believe that they'll have some photographs, historical photographs to share of baseball players and baseball fields from around this area.
Yeah.
So that'll be sometime this summer.
You have to let me know. I'd like to see what that's all about, because I know there's pictures somewhere, around here. And I know at the time when I was a young kid, and that's probably going back before I was probably in high school or a little bit younger, I'd hang along with the city team in Coon Valley and come up here and play. And they had actually a Vernon County baseball league with Stoddard, Viroqua, Coon Valley, and Chaseburg, and a couple other communities in the county. It was a very good league, but people had a lot more time to do things like that, to enjoy it. I think that's the hard thing now. Now we're trying to get the city team going again here, and it's going. It got a lot of our Viroqua kids back in the fold again.
Well, that's
what I like to see is, and they said, how do you keep broadcasting all these events all the time? And I said, to be honest with you, I don't know how we do it. I mean, we just plow through it. February is just crucial with that wrestling thing. I mean, when I get through this wrestling tournament in February, I'm exhausted.
Yeah, we'll have to.
Basketball is a second sport then, because I'm so worn out from all the wrestling broadcasting. It was mentally just really exhausting.
Are you predicting this a similar wrestling season as to how it has been, or is that too much to speculate at this time?
Well, from what I hear, they're going to try to wrestle, and the wrestlers apparently are going to put masks on, but there will be no weekend tournaments. and they're only allowed one duel a week. So it'd be about 7 weeks,
I
which
see.
is a little bit different. But at least maybe they can get it in. That depends on, of course, the COVID situation, you know.
Yes, of
But
course.
hopefully by that time we'll be better. But I guess I thought even last spring that by this time we'd be out of the woods and heading up the right ladder. I was real surprised how the volleyball teams did. And a lot of people I've talked to are just amazed there was hardly anybody of any team that had much COVID issues.
Mhm.
And there's 2 schools around here that had some issues. They had to sit out for a while, but it's amazing. I don't know how, you know,
Sure.
how it works. Apparently they had limited fans. I know that. And that was hard. It had to be hard on the families that wanted to watch their senior play. But getting back to
Sure.
wrestling, as far as I know, they're going to be doing the duels only. And the wrestler has to have 6 days of rest. So I suppose they'll wrestle on Tuesday and then they'll wrestle again the following Tuesday. And
Well,
then the state tournament, from what I've been told, will be at 3 different locations.
okay.
But I don't know if that'll happen. It just like the football now is real weird too, because Iowa did the pod thing where they put all the teams in. Normally they don't do that. And then Wisconsin is going to do the same thing, put all the teams into groups of 4 in a pod. And then you can play a team that's same caliber as far as wins and losses. And then if you lose, you can play the following week, or you don't have to. If you win, then you're required to play 1 more game. So, and this is really, everything's so different.
It is. It's really interesting to hear how people are wanting to pursue the leagues and the different sports, but at the same time make modifications and adjustments so that things are done in regards to safety.
The WIA came out, you know, and I think their safety things were really well done. And I think as long as they abide by a lot of that stuff, that's the only thing we can do. I mean, just try to, and they also came up with this thing that said, you know, high school sports or athletics, the kids need it. I mean, from March until they got to start playing again, I mean, like every coach I talked to, they didn't care who they played. They were just happy that they were doing something, you know. And I think the kids were really excited when football started, you know. And some programs had to shut down because of contact tracing infected some teams, but they started back up again. And like Wisconsin now with the football program, I mean, you're dealing with so many people for so many places, and the kids are a lot older, you know, and that's an issue there. Where high school, they're abiding pretty well by what the coaches say and say, if we want to keep on playing, we got to do this, you know. And I think they realize how much they missed the sports last spring and this past summer.
Yeah, there's something, you know, with sports being so integrated into the fabric of this culture, and particularly in this area where a community may know a lot of the players on different sports teams personally. So it has been a huge adjustment for everyone, and we will wait for further official announcements about how the rest of the season's going to go. But thank you, Gary, for you know, pointing out, you know best a lot of what the information is about the sports teams during this time, and the Legion's involvement with the baseball. And it does sound like a lot has been affected, so it's good to hear it from you firsthand too.
And with the Legion here, they do the Youth Government Day, they sponsor that. And I've really been lucky. I've had so many different county commanders, the term's only 2 years, and you know, like a revolving door every 2 years. They never say, you can't have that many people, we can't afford to do it. And everyone come back to me says, it's for the kids, they need to learn about government stuff, and we're gonna do what I have to do. So the bill, you know, for 66 pizzas run about close to $500. That's a lot of money. And 15 minutes is gone. So if your husband Lacey says you spent too much money shopping, tell him the story about the $500 and 66 pizzas.
I'll keep that in mind.
But, you know, I'm proud to be a veteran. I don't walk around and flaunt it, but I mean, when Pete and I do ball games together, we stand for the national anthem every once in a while. We'll mention our
Mhm,
time in Korea and Germany, being away from home,
mhm,
and ever experienced that. I mean, it's just a different feeling, you know, that you're not with your family, but your
mhm,
military family you dealt with at that time. And as young as I was really surprised because I had never flown in an airplane at all until I got on that plane in La Crosse to fly to Fort Dix, New Jersey, and then overseas to Germany. It was an
mhm.
eerie feeling, you know. Here I am, 18, maybe 19 years old, maybe I don't know, something like that, and 65. All of a sudden, I'm just, you know,
Mhm.
I can't believe that I survived it. Really, look back at it, but I guess you're so young, you're sort of naive at the time and don't think about it.
Yeah, I was curious about that,
Yeah.
Gary, because it sounds like that was a very brave thing to do.
Well, again, he gave me free room and board, you know, for 3 years. Who could pass up a deal like that?
And I was curious as well, being a local to Viroqua as well,
Mhm.
and about the history in 1965. What was the climate like
It
in
actually was worse, I think, than it was now, but it wasn't publicized as much. A lot of protests going on and stuff going on, and we were in the military. We're not really into it because we didn't hear a lot of that.
Mhm,
In Missouri, when I was down there, we heard a little bit of it, but again, everything that the Army post and the papers put in was all pro. You know, there was nothing about anything about the
mhm,
president or anything that said anything against him. And then we got overseas, and we knew things were going on back here, but we had no idea until we got back to the States what was going on. That was a hard situation for the guys that were in Vietnam, especially that were fighting, trying to keep our freedom and free those Vietnamese people. It was hard for them to come back to the United States and then just being rejected. You know, that's why there was a big play on trying to improve relations with the Vietnam War era. You know,
mhm,
where I was in that era, but realistically, it was a whole different atmosphere in Germany because it was almost like life is normal there. I mean,
mhm.
you know, just to understand the language, that's all. It just was different. So,
Yeah,
but there was a lot of stuff going on in this country that we never found out about, you know, until I really came back. And even Wisconsin wasn't bad, but you know, some of the bigger cities were just really rough.
yeah. Thank you, sir, for sharing your reflections and memories of that time. I've often wondered if Viroqua during that civil rights era, Vietnam War era, if Viroqua felt a little cushioned from what was happening
Yeah, I
in
think it
larger
was.
cities,
Yeah,
due to us being more of a rural community, if we felt a little cushioned from that. And so
yeah.
that is why I was curious about what Viroqua felt like during that time. And I'm sure I could imagine and speculate that people certainly cared and absolutely cared about these hometown um, young adults that had been drafted or signed on for the Army. And it
Right.
makes me curious if some of your peers, you knew other people who were your age who had signed up, and perhaps some people were drafted, and um, yeah, people
Yeah.
having different experiences like that.
And some also, even though may have got drafted, they could join like the National Guard. There was a big rush to get in there. A lot of the area, because what happens, you spend 6 months active duty, so to speak, with the National Guard. You're in basic training and then on the job training, and then you're home, and then you know you're signed up for 5.5 years after that. And a lot of people made a career of it. I mean, I just didn't want to. Looking back at it, probably should have, but I just again it was weekends once a month and all that stuff. And I just wanted to be free of all that stuff and do my own thing. And as it turns out, it really worked out well because it would be hard, I think, with my occupation to try to even take one weekend out of my job with the wrestling stuff going on and
Yeah.
basketball tournaments, all that stuff would be complicated for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Was there was there any baseball games played in Germany during your time over there?
No, but over in Germany, soccer was a big thing. They called it foosball. Yeah, they don't call it football, but foosball. But that was one of the things they warned me about when I first got there. They said, "Don't worry if you hear ideas about somebody, shooting something at a soccer game with a pistol or something." I said, "It's soccer. What are they getting worried about?" Well, I forgot soccer was a tight, 1-0, 2-1. But in Europe, they're really into it. I mean, it's life and death, basically. And then every small towns like Westby and Viroqua playing soccer against each other. And these guys and the fans are going crazy. And then some don't like it. So then they start, I don't know if it does very much of that now, but then for a while there, it was just crazy in the 60s over there. They were actually taking pistols to the soccer match. They weren't happy with the way the game was going.
I couldn't imagine that.
I know. I mean,
very
good heavens, there's only a game, and of course, like I say, soccer still is not, we don't cover that. We cover, we don't do gymnastics. I tried cross country, and that was hard to do, and track and field, we tried that too, and it's really hard. Otherwise, we do about everything else.
Yeah.
And they thought volleyball, they told us once that probably the most boring sport in the world to play or broadcast, and we found it actually, it's like watching a pinball machine, because the ball goes back, get three things. You got, bump, set, spike, and it just goes that fast. I mean, bing, it's done.
Right.
Sometimes it's just really hard to keep up with it. So, but it's been really a challenging year for us too, with everything, with the sports stuff and the community events we've done. Everything's been canceled, except the Retreat World's Fair. So, yeah, that was partially there, but the parade was there. But hopefully, 2021 will be a lot better for us. And I've been always optimistic about things. And I just think down the road here, this will all be behind us before too long. But what too long means, I don't know. It could be quite a while yet. I think it'll be this long either. But yet the year has gone by fast. I mean, good heavens, we're already in November. And look back when this first came out, middle of March. It's just been a whirlwind, and people have been, most part, have been pretty good about, and you look back at all the cases, we have quite a higher insistence now, but before that, we were doing pretty well. I still remember the call I got from the Vernon County Emergency Management Office the day they got their first COVID case. They felt like they'd, I said, well, think of this. There's 72 counties in Vernon and Wisconsin, and there were 5 left standing. We were one of the 5 left. I mean, that says a lot, and we've been pretty diligent what we're doing here, but it's just one of those things that it's hard to pinpoint where it's coming from and who has it.
Yeah.
It isn't like the flu, and it's got each person is different. Some have had an Arcadia volleyball coach, she had a runny nose and got tested positive. That's all she had. Other ones get really, really sick from it. I just feel sorry for the ones that are really suffering from this stuff.
Yeah. I don't think you're alone in those thoughts and concerns for.
And it might be a myth, Lazy, but somebody told me at the get-go back in mid-March that if you drink lots of coffee and eat lutefisk, you'll never get COVID. I think that so far it hasn't hit me, but I'm a little on lutefisk, but I'm plenty good in coffee.
Well, maybe an American Norwegian living in Coon Valley had recommended that to you.
We'll see.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Gary, for joining us today. Hearing your reflections has just been really a treat. You're a real treasure in our community. Thank you for all the reporting that you've done for all of these decades and years. And I know we can rely on you to continue to bring valid and good information to our community, and for all the work that you've done with Legion. Thank you so much, and to your fellow Legionnaires as well. And thank you for the service that you've given to our country. And we do a salute to the veterans today in this community.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you inviting me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I'll just give a little plug that the library is now open for people to come in and browse the shelves on Mondays and Tuesdays from 9 a.m. until 7 p.m. Wednesday, Thursday, Fridays from 9 a.m. until 4 in the afternoon. Okay, thanks again, Gary. Have a good day. Happy Veterans Day.
Thank you.
Thank you.